All right, welcome back to Fantasy Files 1054 or FFX54 for short. We're back with another start sit video. We call it start sit, but we're really just going through and looking at all fantasy options, whether it's going to be a trade target, a waiver wire pickup ad, a waiver wire drop, or start sit. So that's what we do every Tuesday or Wednesday. We'll release those videos throughout the entirety of the season. And then every Sunday before the 1 o'clock kickoff Eastern time, we do a live stream where we go in, we set some DFS lineups, we make some pick'ems on UnderdogFantasy.com, and we kind of just get prepared for the upcoming week and get our lineups all locked down. So if any of that sounds like something that you're interested in, go ahead and leave a like on the video, subscribe, and ring the notification bell so you get notified when we're live or when a new video goes up. But getting into week 4's start sits, let's get after it. So, starting on Thursday with the Miami Dolphins and the Bengals. Looks like Tua should be good to go, which is surprising. They said that he had back spasms, I think, but to me, that was a clear concussion. He looked very wobbly, like anyone looks when they get knocked out. So, kind of interested to see how the investigation goes in the way they dealt with Tua's concussion. But nonetheless, he will be available, and you can start him. This offense is one of the most high-powered offenses in the league, and they've proven that through the first 3 weeks. One of only 2 3-0 teams left. So if you want to go through and start Tua, maybe you're a team that had a Aaron Rodgers, a Russell Wilson, a Tom Brady, and you have Tua, you picked him up a little bit later in the draft, then you can go ahead and start him over any of those players. Chase Edmonds is a potential flex play. He is going to get red zone touches. He's going to get some passes, but he's not a reliable option just yet. That being said, the running back position is very tricky. It's very thin. So, and there has been some injuries, some very key injuries. So, if you're in a position where you're looking at having to play him, he is an option, and he is going to have that goal line opportunity. He's going to have the opportunity in the passing game. So, he has a high ceiling, but his floor is almost nothing, and we saw that in week 2. So you can start him, but be very weary of it, and only start him if you have to. Raheem Mostert still a bench. Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, obvious starts, and then Mike Gesicki. I don't like playing Mike Gesicki. The only reason I have some hesitation here's his scores in the full PPR format to date. The only thing that makes me feel like you could start him here is that he's playing the Bengals. So I think that it's going to be a high-scoring game. Might be a shootout, which means a lot of points on the board, which means Mike Gesicki might get a shot. So if you're in a situation where you really are scrounging and scraping for a tight end on the waiver wire and he's your best option, then fine. But other than that, you should have a better option. Cincinnati Bengals. Let's see. Joe Burrow. You can start. I would start him more confidently over any of the players I mentioned earlier: Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady, Russell Wilson, any of the players like that. So you can start him. I think he's a solid start. The only issue here is he has no rushing upside. And I'm a true believer that you have to have a quarterback if you want to have a shot at having a elite quarterback on your roster. They're gonna have to have that rushing upside. But if you punted him for a while, if you punted quarterback for a while, you got Joe Burrow. He's a solid play here. Joe Mixon is tricky. He's been disappointing me. I have him in 2 of my 3 fantasy leagues, and he's not been producing other than week 1. But he was coming off of a little bit of an injury last week, and I really do believe in the Bengals offense, so I feel like they get it figured out a little bit. The only thing that's legitimately concerning moving forward throughout the rest of the season is that Samaje Perine was getting touches on the goal line and in the red zone. I'm curious to see if that is something that they do moving forward or if that is something that they did in an effort to give Joe Mixon some rest because of the injury. So We're gonna have to wait and see on that. But Joe Mixon, you drafted him early. You're definitely not benching him, and you're just hoping for the best here at this point. Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, both solid starts. Nothing much to be said there. Tyler Boyd, I know he had a really good week last week. We can go ahead and check out what it ended up being in the fantasy realm of PPR. He had a 20-point game, 105 yards and a touchdown. But the targets here is really what I'm looking at. And 5 targets at average is not something that I want to be putting in my starting lineup every single week. So I think you can keep him on your bench. You definitely should be rostering him. And if anything happens to either Jamar Chase or T. Higgins, then Tyler Boyd is an easy start. But for the time being, just because of the T. Higgins and Jamar Chase are such a dominant force in that wide receiver room, then you're going to have to bench Tyler Boyd. Hayden Hurst, you can start kind of a Mike Gesicki type of situation. You're really just fishing for touchdowns here. Now, if you had a decision between Mike Gesicki and Hayden Hurst, I would go Hayden Hurst all day. He has a little bit more volume throughout the past 3 weeks, so I would start him more confidently over Mike Gesicki. Moving on to the 9:30 game. So I'm assuming this is in London. Let's go ahead and confirm that. What game was that? That was Minnesota Vikings, New Orleans Saints. London. Yep, it's in London. So that's at 9:30. Let's get into the Minnesota Vikings. Kirk Cousins, you can start kind of the same situation as Joe Burrow. But you can go ahead and start him against this New Orleans Saints defense. I thought this defense was elite, but last week kind of proved otherwise with letting Baker Mayfield go down and win the game on him. So I think less highly of the New Orleans Saints defense. I mean, it's not a situation like Tampa Bay where when a player's going up against Tampa Bay, Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon, you almost can't start them. That's not the case here with New Orleans Saints. They're good. They're a better defense than most, but we're not benching players because of them. So Kirk Cousins, we can start. Dalvin Cook, we can start. It was nice to see a little bit of life out of him last week. This is a player that we were advocating for you to go ahead and try to trade as a trade target of the past 2 weeks because he was underproducing based off of where we grabbed him in the draft. Now, even though 13.8, 7.6, 13.6 doesn't look like a lot of points, if we look over here to the attempts he's getting and the opportunities, he has 20 attempts in week 1, 17 attempts last week. He had 6 targets week 2, 5 in week 1, and he has a touchdown now. So if he can put together a 20 attempt, 96 rushing yard, and 4 receptions and a touchdown, now we're looking at a nuclear week. So what I'm saying is that a nuclear week is just on the horizon for Dalvin Cook. So if you could still trade for him, then go ahead and try to do that. So we'll go ahead and hit the trade target button. This is probably going to be the last week you can go out and get him for anything that's relatively cheap. Like I would try to grab him for Austin Eckler right now. That's unfortunately the reality right now. But moving forward, Justin Jefferson is going to be another trade target. And again, this is a situation where it's a first-round draft pick. So you're not going to go out there and give someone scraps for Justin Jefferson because he did have 2 weeks that have been down back-to-back now. The talent is there. So we're targeting for him to bounce back. So if you can go out there and pair like Mike Williams and Breece Hall or something to get Justin Jefferson, then that's something that I think we should be doing. Breece Hall might not have been the best example there. Maybe more of like a Mike Williams, CEH, and Ramondre Stevenson. You might be able to throw that together and convince the Justin Jefferson owner that there's enough potential there to repay him. Because I think this is going to be the lowest that Justin Jefferson sees all season. So if you are going to try to trade for him, it's going to be this week leading into week 4. Adam Thielen you can play as a flex type player. And then Irv Smith is another player. It's a tight end that I'm getting really excited about. I targeted him in a couple trades where I had the other team throw them in as a trade piece, kind of at the end of the trade, say, oh yeah, throw Irv Smith in and we're good. And this is a team where I'm, looking for the Tyler Conklins. I'm looking for the David Njoku's. I'm kind of at the bottom of the barrel in the tight end category. So Irv Smith is one of those players that's very athletic. He's one of the few tight ends that can break a big play. So we saw it out of him in week 2. And he actually almost had more than 14.6 fantasy points because he dropped a long touchdown. And then last week we see Kirk Cousins go through and target him 6 more times. So Irv Smith is a sneaky tight end that you can go and target in either a trade, or you might even be lucky enough and find him on the waiver wire. So Irv Smith is definitely going to be in a tier above the Hayden Hurst and the Mike Gesicki's. Moving on to the New Orleans Saints. Jameis Winston, we're benching. You should have another option out there. Alvin Kamara, we're starting. We're hoping for a big week this week. He's been getting the opportunities, but Mark Ingram had a touchdown in the red zone that got taken away from Alvin Kamara. So we're going to look to see if this is going to be a trend moving forward, kind of like a Detroit Lions situation where maybe Mark Ingram gets the inside the 5 touches. That's something we're going to have to wait and see. And Jameis Winston just doesn't check it down nearly as much as Drew Brees does, or did. Jameis Winston wants to air it out, and that means that Alvin Kamara is not getting hyper-targeted out of the backfield, making his value drop quite a bit. That being said, I still think he's underdeveloping, underproducing based off of the targets that he has been getting, or the touches that he's been getting. We see here, 13 opportunities on week 1, and then in week 3, we see another 22 another 22 opportunities. And he is still coming back from that cartilage injury. So we will look to see if his usage gets scaled up at all, or if it's going to kind of level out here and have slower weeks and bigger weeks, but kind of in that RB2 range type player. So we'll wait and see what's happening to him. Give the pass for the injury card just for a week, 1 week more, and then we'll reevaluate next week. But you're going to start him regardless. Chris Olave is one of those players that's, has a lot of hype building behind him. He has 26 targets in the past 2 weeks. He was a very high draft capital pick in this last year's draft, and he is a wide receiver. So this is a player that could take over. He could be a league winner. I say this with a little bit of, it hurts to say just because I traded him away as a trade piece in a preseason trade, and now I'm wishing that I never sent him off. So Chris Olave is a must start at this point. When someone's getting targeted 13 times a game, you have to start him. Jameis Winston fits the profile of Chris Olave. He likes to air it out. He's going to continue to target Chris Olave moving forward. So we're going to have to start Chris Olave as a wide receiver 2 option. And then Michael Thomas, we're starting if he's healthy. Jarvis Landry, we're benching even if he is healthy. And then Juwan Johnson, you should have a better option. Moving on is going to be a 1 o'clock game, Buffalo Bills versus the Baltimore Ravens. This is scary. This is really scary for my Baltimore Ravens, but I will say the Buffalo's defense is a little beat up still. I think that Jordan Poyer will be back. Micah Hyde is out for the entirety of this season. I don't know if Tre'Davious White is going to be back quite yet or not, but nonetheless, it's going to be a very difficult matchup for the Ravens. And this start-sit section of the video is going to be very easy because it's the best offense in the entire league. Josh Allen to start. Devin Singletary, start. Zach Moss and James Cook, I'm going to say you can bench them, but I'm just looking to see here if you should even be rostering them at this point, and it doesn't look like it. So I think James Cook you can drop for now. I don't think anyone's going to be snagging him out from under you. And then Zach Moss, you're definitely benching. Stephon Diggs, you're starting. Gabe Davis, you're starting. And then Isaiah McKenzie, you could even start. You got to remember that the Ravens secondary is horrible, and they let up the most amount of points to wide receivers in fantasy football. So this is a situation where you kind of just want to start any piece that you can get in the passing game if you're a Buffalo Bill going up against the Ravens here. And it's not, the Ravens aren't a bad team, so it's not like the Bills are going to go up by a lot and fast, or at least they shouldn't, which will leave the passing game open for all 4 quarters, really kind of maxing out what the potential of Stephon Diggs, Gabe Davis, and Isaiah McKenzie is this upcoming week. So I would start all of them if you can. And then Dawson Knox, same deal. I mean, we're going to have a shootout. It's possible that 80 points get scored in this game. So we want any piece of that we can get on both sides of the football, to be honest. So moving to the Ravens, kind of keeping that theme going. Lamar Jackson, MVP frontrunner right now. J.K. Dobbins, I don't think we can start just yet. He's still ramping up his workload. So let's not start him just yet. I know I was just saying we want all the pieces that we can get in this matchup, but J.K. Dobbins isn't there just yet. Justice Hill is still out snapping him. So why don't we give J.K. Dobbins another week and see what we see. Rashad Bateman, you're starting. He had a poopy week last week, but you got to move on from it. It's going to happen. He's a volatile receiver, kind of like a Marquise Brown type player was last year. He's going to have huge plays. He's going to some weeks he'll have a couple huge plays, and then some weeks he'll have a week like last week where he doesn't get targeted much. He gets you 5 points, and it's kind of a dud on your roster. So, but you have to play him. You have to play Rashad Bateman here, and then obviously you have to play Mark Andrews. I think Isaiah Likely is going to be a player that gets used more and more. You're going to have better options out there in the tight end position for now, but just keep an eye out and just look at what he's doing. But a player I didn't touch on is Devin Duvernay. Devin Duvernay is very volatile as well. So if you're looking for a home run at your wide receiver position, you can go ahead and start him. But he doesn't get that many targets. If we look back, I know his points look good, but if we look back, he has 8 total targets on the entire season. Now he cashed out 3 of those 8 targets into touchdowns, and a lot of them are big plays. And he has had a kickoff return for a touchdown as well. So he's very volatile. He's not a reliable pick at all, but he does have a high ceiling. So just use that information as you wish. Because if you're using this to apply it to a DFS style format, maybe Devin Duvernay does have some value for you there. Maybe you try to save some money, get a Devin Duvernay, hope you get one of those 20-point games, and then use some of that money in other areas. So Devin Duvernay is definitely not irrelevant to fantasy football, but he's definitely not a safe play in redraft leagues. Cleveland Browns and Atlanta Falcons. Ugh. I actually think this... I was going to say I think it's going to be a high-scoring game, but I think I'm walking back from that. These are very low-powered offenses. I think the Atlanta Falcons have a little better of an offense than we expected in the preseason. I think, honestly, the Browns do as well. It looks like Jacoby Brissett and Amari Cooper are rolling now. Nick Chubb is looking like a beast. So I don't think the Cleveland Browns offense is as hopeless as we originally thought, but I think their defenses are both pretty solid. So maybe 45 to 50 points on this game in total. But Jacoby Brissett, that was a little tangent. That doesn't get accounted in. It doesn't really matter when you're looking at starts and sits. So I don't know why we went on that little tangent there, but anyways. Nick Chubb, start. Kareem Hunt, I don't think he's I don't think he provides enough consistent value to start him. I know the running back position is quite thin, and if we look at a full PPR league scoring system, we're going to see 23, 9.4, and 9.1 in the past 3 weeks. So he's definitely not an irrelevant option. I just would prefer to shoot for a wide receiver in this category or in this range. Even a Zay Jones, I'd rather play over Kareem Hunt on your waiver wire. So maybe if your backfield, your running backs and your fantasy team have been riddled by injuries or something along those lines, Elijah Mitchell, David Montgomery type thing, then yeah, sure, you can start Kareem Hunt. But I would prefer to start someone over him in the flex. We'll put it that way. Moving on, Amari Cooper. He's proven to us that you have to start him. You have to. I actually think Amari Cooper is going to be a trade target, and when I say trade target, I mean a trade piece. I think you can fish him and sell him high. I think you will have other 20-point games moving forward, but coming off of back-to-back 20-point games, you could probably sell it to someone that he is going to continue this streak for the next, for the entire season and sell him a lot higher than what he's actually going to be worth. It looks really good in the fantasy point category, but he's not going to keep repeating this. He's the first Brown. He's the first Brown to have back-to-back 100-yard, 1-touchdown games in like a crazy. I think since Josh Gordon. So I think there's an opportunity here to sell him high. But if you want to keep him and you believe in him in the future, because you're really trying to get to week 11 or 12 when Deshaun Watson comes back, then Amari Cooper can be a league winner. With Jacoby Brissett, his ceiling is limited to probably what you're seeing now at 25 points. But he's definitely startable. He shouldn't be on your bench. And if you're hanging on to him, then start him. Everyone else in the receiving game here, you bench except for David Njoku. David Njoku showed us that he's going to be volatile, which every tight end in the entire league is volatile except for maybe two. But when he does give you that pop-off game, he gives you a massive game like we saw last week. He got targeted 10 times at the tight end position and 5 times the week before that for a grand total of 24 fantasy points. So you're going to have to start him. You might even be able to pick him up on your waiver wire. So if he's on your waiver wire, pick him up and feel free to start him moving forward. Atlanta Falcons. Bench Marcus Mariota. I hesitate because Marcus Mariota does give us a higher floor than most because of his rushing upside. He's going to be involved in the running game every single game. So he's not a hard bench maybe moving forward. I'm trying to think of a scenario where like you had Dak Prescott and Aaron Rodgers as your quarterbacks. Aaron Rodgers has not been producing. Dak Prescott is injured. So maybe you go and stream Marcus Mariota. I think he's a streaming option, but hopefully you have a better option here. Cordero Patterson is a must-start at this point. He's shown us 2 22-point games in a full PPR format. So that's the guy we're going to have to start in our flex or our running back position. So surprisingly, Cordero's value has always been in the passing game because he's an ex-wide receiver. But he actually I think he had like 1 target last game, and all of his fantasy value was actually on the ground. So this is a little bit surprising. 1 target last week. It's a little bit surprising, but even without the targets, he's proven to be a very valuable fantasy option with 141 rushing yards and a touchdown. So if he even had 4 more receptions and 40 yards with that, this is a player that can be dropping 30 points out of nowhere. So you have to start him. Tyler Algier is worth the roster at this point, but we're definitely not starting him. Drake London, proven must start. He's getting way too many targets in this offense to not start him. If we go through and look at his stats, it's looking like he had 25 targets in 3 games, 2 touchdowns in 3 games. We're gonna have to start that. He's been in double digits every single game. So, and you got to remember, this is also the first drafted wide receiver in the NFL draft last year, and pretty much without fail, wide receivers drafted that high are going to return their value. So you're starting Drake London no matter what. Kyle Pitts, we're going to start no matter what. It's nice to see him have a little bit of life last week with 8 targets. And he actually put up a double-digit performance at the tight end position. And that's what we're going to be looking for him to repeat moving forward. But if you have him, you're starting him. I have him in 2 of my 3 leagues. So this is a player that I'm excited about, and he's a lineup lock every single week. New York Jets versus the Pittsburgh Steelers. Ugh. Battle of the offenses, huh? So it looks like Zach Wilson's going to be back this week, which brings up a little bit of a concern for me because I am a Breece Hall owner and an Elijah Moore owner. And I don't know how this affects me. Breece Hall was getting 10 to 11 targets out of the backfield with Joe Flacco. He's an immobile quarterback, so a lot of immobile quarterbacks will check it down to their running backs more frequently than mobile quarterbacks would. So I'm a little bit nervous that the targets for Breece Hall come down, and I also don't know if this is going to be a worse or better team with Zach Wilson, and that matters because of the amount of opportunities that we're going to have in the offense. If the quarterback can't move the chains, it's going to result in a limited amount of snaps for the team as a whole. So I'm a little bit nervous about that, and I'm curious to see how this affects the offense moving forward because Breece Hall has been a very viable fantasy option. Elijah Moore has been a little more quiet than what we thought he was going to be. And then Garrett Wilson has had an insane amount of targets right off the bat as a rookie. So flipping quarterbacks is going to I'm curious to see if it does anything, and if so, what it does to the offense and targets. But we're not starting Zach Wilson. I'm personally starting Breece Hall. I think the receiving upside is there to give him a high 10-point floor. And then if he scores a touchdown, we're looking at a 15, 17, 16, 20-point game. And I think he's only going to get better since he's a rookie and he's only 3 games in producing valuable fantasy production. So Breece Hall is a player that I'm going to start. Michael Carter I'm benching. Garrett Wilson, you have to start him. Elijah Moore, I think, is a start this week. I know we haven't seen it, but we have seen the targets. And Zach Wilson put up a couple good games with Elijah Moore last year. So I'm going to be starting Elijah Moore in my lineups. And then Corey Davis is a bench. And Tyler Conklin, man. I think he's like the 3rd tight end overall behind Mark Andrews and Travis Kelce. He's getting an average of 8 targets a game. His PPR scores are over 10 points every single game. So if you have Tyler Conklin, you're starting him. If he's on the waiver wire, pick him up. If we see a huge drop-off in targets with Zach Wilson coming in, we'll reevaluate. But as of now, you have to start Tyler Conklin. Pittsburgh Steelers, Mitchell Trubisky, bench, Najee Harris, obvious start. We'd like to see a little bit more life out of him moving forward. Deontay Johnson, always going to be a start. I think he's very valuable in redraft league formats because he has such a high floor. He's getting 10 targets a game, and with that much volume, even from a bad quarterback, you're going to have a high floor of at least 10 points. So I love Deontay Johnson. We're going to start him. Chase Claypool, we're sitting. George Pickens, I told you to hold on to him last week. He had that amazing catch on Thursday night, and I'm going to continue to hold him because I think that showed to the world that he is a very good receiver. He has a very high skill gap from other wide receivers in the league, and all he needs now is opportunity. He's a rookie coming in, so we expect a little bit of a ramp-up period here. So give him some time. I think George Pickens can be a league winner later on, or a potential one at that. I think he has the talents to support that. And then Pat Freiermuth, you got to start. All right, Washington Commanders versus the Dallas Cowboys. Washington Commanders. So this is the divisional game at 1 o'clock. Carson Wentz. I think you still can start him. I know he had a really bad week last week against the Philadelphia Eagles. I think the Philadelphia Eagles defense is legit. And then he had 30-point games back-to-back to start off the year. I think the Jacksonville Jaguars defense is actually pretty solid. So it's not like he just walked 2 bad defenses. And I don't think Dallas Cowboys defense is incredible. I think that Micah Parsons is going to get the Carson Wentz, get a few sacks. But I think that the Commanders will have some luck moving the ball on the Dallas Cowboys. So Carson Wentz, you can start if you need to. Antonio Gibson, you're starting still. Brian Robinson is a player that actually, hold on. Before we move off of Antonio Gibson, trade target. Get rid of Antonio Gibson while you can. Brian Robinson is on his way back. He was awarded the starting running back job in Washington. So if you have Antonio Gibson, you've been riding out the high, sell him now. Sell him now because he's going to have a huge drop-off in value when Brian Robinson gets back. And I know Brian Robinson isn't coming back this week, which is why you need to sell him now. Because as soon as the news comes out that he is back, Antonio Gibson's stock is gone. So sell Antonio Gibson if you have him. Grab Brian Robinson off your waiver wire if you can. J.D. McKissic, we're not starting. Terry McLaurin, you're starting, but you just know he's kind of like a Rashad Bateman type where if he's going to have volatile scoring. If you were a Terry McLaurin owner last week, you were very unpleased with his performance for 3 quarters, and then the 4th quarter he popped off and gave you a pretty good fantasy production last week. but we're nervous. He's volatile. It's not the Terry McLaurin show anymore. Curtis Samuel is demanding targets. Jahan Dotson is producing. So it's not the one-man show anymore. So it's not going to be steady 10 targets every single game moving forward. I think we just bump him down in our ranks, but we're still starting him. Curtis Samuel, you have to start based off of the volume. Jahan Dotson, leave him on your bench. He's 2 touchdown dependent right now, and but definitely don't drop him. And then Logan Thomas, you can start, but I think there's better options out there on your waiver wire. And if not, if you're in a position where you have to be starting Logan Thomas, maybe look to make a trade because I don't think it's getting better moving forward. I think you got kind of the best out of him already. Dallas Cowboys, Cooper Rush. What has he been doing in fantasy? I would be lying to you if I even knew, if I told you if I knew. So nothing really valuable, it looks like. But he looked pretty good last night. I mean, you know, he won. He's 3-0. He might be earning a position somewhere else come next year, or even maybe halfway through this year if there's an injury. But we're not starting him in fantasy football. Dak Prescott is a player. Make sure he's on your waiver wire. Maybe you can get it for super cheap right now, but I'm not going to put a trade target calling on him. Zeke is, the days of starting Zeke and feeling comfortable about it are long gone. If you have him on your team, you're not a subscriber to this channel. I've been screaming from the rooftops. If you're going to draft anybody in this backfield, it's Tony Pollard. Zeke is, he's a memory at this point. You got to let it go. He's done. Find a better option. Sell him for whatever you can get for him. We're moving on from Ezekiel Elliott. Tony Pollard, we're rostering. You can even start him in the flex at this point. He had 100 yards on the ground, primarily off of one run. But, I mean, he has value. So if you're in a situation where you want to start him in the flex, I understand. So you can. I would actually feel more comfortable starting Tony Pollard over Ezekiel Elliott. I can say that for sure. CeeDee Lamb is a hammer start. He was a buy low candidate after week 1. He's been proving us right since then. Amazing touchdown catch on Monday Night Football. He had a really bad drop too. So I think that he's been getting 10 targets a game, 11 targets a game. And with that volume on a good offense with the Dak Prescott on the horizon of coming back, you're starting CeeDee Lamb, of course. Noah Brown is startable if Michael Gallup is out again. But if Michael Gallup comes back, we're going to start Michael Gallup and sit Noah Brown, and then vice versa. Just depending on Michael Gallup's injury. Dalton Schultz, if he's available, you're obviously starting him. Jacksonville Jaguars and the Philadelphia Eagles. This is a very interesting game, and I wanted to talk about the Jaguars a little bit when I got to them. So what I'm going to say here is I think this offense is one of the best offenses in the league. I think that you want a piece of this offense. I don't think it's a fluke. I think it's showing how bad Urban Meyer was and how much he held back this offense. I think it showed how important or how badly the Jaguars needed weapons, because now this year they have ETN, they have Christian Kirk, they have Zay Jones, they have Evan Ingram. So they've added a ton of weapons, and this is an offense that was ranked low coming into the season. This is not a drill. This offense is legit. So Trevor Lawrence, you can start. Now, mind you, we're going up against the Eagles. The Eagles have been very good. The Lions were still able to put up some points on them, but I think the Eagles' defense is also legit, so take that into account. But I do want it to be known that I think the Jaguars are not. I think they're real. I do think they're real, and I think they're getting better. So James Robinson, he's starting, feeling like a diamond in the rough right about now. ETN, you're not starting him, but you're definitely hanging on to him. He's been getting like 10 points even every single week. So I guess you could throw him in there, especially in a game where I think the score is going to be high. So he will have some opportunity. I'm sure he's getting, he's itching for the end zone at this point. But if you can start someone over him, but I could see a scenario where you want to go with him as a pick in like a DFS format. Maybe you can get it for cheap and kind of play that gamble, play that chance. I mean, you got to remember, fantasy football is all of game of chance. You can analyze and give yourself the best odds, but there's always going to be that level of chance in there. So if you want to play the odds of getting lucky on these lower players. I don't want that. Like, some players are hard sits. Travis Etienne is not a hard sit. You can find an excuse, or you can find a reason to throw him in a lineup. So he's kind of on that fringe there, but start someone over him if you can. I would even start like a Zay Jones in your flex over Travis Etienne. Christian Kirk is a lineup lock. There's nothing else that needs to be said. He is the passing game in Jacksonville. Zay Jones, you can start now. He's gotten 2 games with 10 targets. I mean, one was 9 and one was 11, but either way, he's a crucial part of this offense, so you can start him. Marvin Jones, you're sitting, and then Evan Ingram, you can start. Jaguars, and then the Eagles. Jalen Hurts, start. I have him in every one of my leagues. We're starting. Miles Sanders, you're still starting. A disappointing week last week, but the opportunity was there. You can go ahead and still start Miles Sanders. Kenneth Gainwell, drop him if you still have him. We're definitely sitting him. A.J. Brown, we're starting. Devontae Smith. He proved to us that he's a lineup lock. You have to start him because that upside. He won the Heisman as a wide receiver. We know the talent is the best collegiate talent at the wide receiver position that we've seen in a very long time. And it's finally coming to fruition, and it was kind of his big blow-up game last week. So we're starting Devontae Smith at this point, and then Dallas Goedert, you're also starting. Bears and Giants, we're flying through this. Not much to be said. Justin Fields, we're benching Khalil Herbert. We're starting if David Montgomery is injured, and if David Montgomery is not injured, we'll start David Montgomery and sit Khalil Herbert. But if David Montgomery is looking like he's not going to play and Khalil Herbert's on your waiver wire, go ahead and put that claim in there. Grab Khalil Herbert, and he'll be a lineup lock in the event of the David Montgomery injury. And then I'm going to make it easy. Any part of the Chicago Bears passing offense, get rid of it. Get rid of it. You're sitting, not even thinking about it. The Giants, Daniel Jones, we're sitting. Let me just verify I'm not talking on my ass here. I mean, you should have a better option than Daniel Jones. You should have a better option than Daniel Jones. He is going up against the Chicago Bears defense, but I still don't want any part of that. Saquon Barkley is an easy start. And then anyone in this passing offense, same as the Bears, we're benching. Chargers and Texans. I wouldn't read a whole lot into the Chargers' performance last week. I think that everyone knew that Khalil Herbert was hurt. Khalil Herbert. I think everyone knew that Justin Herbert was still dealing with his injury. Keenan Allen was out. I didn't feel like the Chargers were there mentally, and they checked out pretty early, which is why we saw that score get run up on what we know is a very good team. So I know the performance last week from the Chargers was very disappointing, but I think that's kind of an anomaly on the season. So Justin Herbert, if he plays, we start him. Austin Eckler is a trade target. You should be able to get some value for him based off of the name, but he's not going to repay the value of where you took him. He had 5 rushing attempts. Or no, I'm sorry. I think he had 4 or 5 rushing attempts on the entire game. He played the whole game. He didn't leave with injury. Yeah, 4 rushing attempts for 5 yards. He had 8 targets, so it was used more of a wide receiver, and in a PPR format, it ended up being a decent score. But the usage of Austin Eckler at this point is very concerning, and I think he's a player that you could turn in a package for Justin Jefferson right now, and maybe go with Austin Eckler, a worse receiver, grab Justin Jefferson, and maybe like James Robinson or something. I know it's gross, or maybe like a James Robinson, Travis Etienne package. I know it's gross, but the reality of it is the volume isn't there. So I'm going to be getting rid of Austin Eckler where I can. Mike Williams is a start. You have to start him. You have to have any part of this passing game that you can. And just to be clear, Austin Eckler isn't a useless fantasy option. He's just not going to be the 3rd best player in the entire league this year, which is where you drafted him. So if you can get someone in that value that is producing, or we feel like is going to produce moving forward, then we're going to go ahead and try to make that return on our investment. So he's not useless, and we still want a part of this passing game, including Austin Eckler. But we're just trying to get someone that will be a little bit more value with the name of Austin Eckler. So just to clarify, Mike Williams, we're starting. Keenan Allen, we're starting. Josh Palmer, I'm benching with Keenan Allen coming back this week. I don't think that Josh Palmer has enough targets. And Gerald Everett, you can start based off of the nature of the tight end position, but I'm looking elsewhere. I think that the best has been seen of Gerald Everett. I know he had an exciting start, but I think it's going to die off here quick with Keenan Allen coming back. Texans, we're going to fly through this one. Davis Mills, bench. Damian Pierce, start in the flex. Brandon Cooks, you're starting. Everyone else, you're benching. Titans versus Colts is going to be a divisional game. Very intense game, but Ryan Tannehill, we're going to bench here. Nothing of, well, I guess he... Okay, maybe Ryan Tannehill is a streaming option then. I spoke before I evaluated. Based off of the season that the Titans have had leading up to this point, they were 0-2. They went out and got their first win against the Raiders last week. So based off of their slow start, I was assuming that Ryan Tannehill was going to be an option that was getting us in that 10 to 15 point range where we don't really want to be looking at him, or at least we want to be looking elsewhere if we have the option. But it's, with him having 2 games on the board of 20 points, if you need to stream a quarterback, then it looks like he actually is going to be a relevant option. Now, the Indianapolis Colts defense has been looking horrible, and actually got shut out by the Jags, and have lost some other very important games, or what should have been easier games. So going up against this weaker defense, I think I'm okay with starting Ryan Tannehill. I go back on what I originally thought. Derrick Henry, it was nice to see him actually perform in a game on the ground. He should have had 2 touchdowns, but one was vultured by Ryan Tannehill on the goal line. So Ryan Tannehill got that rushing touchdown. But what we really like to see here is Derrick Henry getting targeted out of the backfield and getting involved in the passing game. You can see right here that he got an extra 10.8 points just as a receiver. And then he got his touchdown and 20 attempts on the ground as well. So Derrick Henry's back. Hopefully you traded for him low last week when we told you to. But moving forward, he's going to be what we expected him to be. I'll leave it at that. Treylon Burks. Trade target. He's been underproducing. His opportunities have been scaling up. His snap count has been scaling up. His targets per route run has been scaling up. He's a rookie. He's getting the hang of it. He's getting more targeted more and more. You're going to see him develop into that 1A receiver for the Titans. So get him while you can. There's a trade where we're looking at the back half of the season as a time where you should be able to play him. So grab him now while he's in that ramp-up period for cheap, and then you'll have him when he has the value, as opposed to the other way around. Robert Woods we're benching. Treylon Burks we're still benching, to be clear, and then Austin Hooper we're benching. Colts, Matt Ryan. We're benching. Not exciting, not looking good. You should have a better option. So bench Matt Ryan. Jonathan Taylor, we're still starting. Nyheim Hines is interesting because I don't think you can start him, but he does give you a decent amount of production in the PPR format. So it's someone worth hanging on to, and it looks like he's being used pretty consistently with about 6 targets a game in the receiving game of the Indianapolis Colts. But we're not starting him. Sit him, roster him, but don't start. Michael Pittman, easy start. Everyone else in the receiving game is going to be a bench. Seattle Seahawks versus the Lions. Geno Smith. I saw today that Geno Smith is actually outproducing Russell Wilson in just about every stat possible, including fantasy value. So he's an option that, against the Detroit Lions, a weaker defense that have let up a lot of points to the quarterback position. You can start Geno Smith as a quarterback streaming option, surprisingly enough. Rashad Penny and Ken Walker, you're benching. You're sitting both of them. Ken Walker is the one worth holding on to on your roster. I think Rashad Penny, you're trying to get rid of any way possible. DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett have proven themselves to be starts at this point with the production of Geno Smith. So we can go ahead and throw them in our lineups. It's not going to be the value or the rank or the production out of these two that you were hoping for. Primarily DK Metcalf based off of the draft capital. But they still have fantasy value. It looks like their floor is going to be in that 10-point range, and then your ceiling is going to be in that 20-point range. So definitely still viable options as your wide receiver 2 or flex. And then Disley, I know we've had some spike weeks. You can take a shot if you want, but I would prefer to sit him and use a different option there. Detroit Lions, Jared Goff is going to be a streaming option, especially going up against the Seattle Seahawks defense. Jamal Williams is going to be a hammer start this week because DeAndre Swift is going to miss time with a shoulder/ankle injury. So until he comes back, Jamal Williams is going to be a hammer start. Check if he's on your waivers, because if he is and you can scoop him up, then that's a top 12 running back performance waiting to happen that you can get for free. So if you can pick him up or if you have him on your bench, start him this week. I know it's not an exciting name, but it doesn't mean anything. He's going to get the opportunities going up against a bad defense. Start Jamal Williams. Amon-Ra, obvious start. DJ Chark, bench. TJ Hawkinson, start. Everyone else in the receiving game, we're going to bench. All right. Cardinals and Panthers. Oh, the two most disappointing teams of the season. Kyler Murray, we're starting him at quarterback. James Conner, I think, can be a trade target. I think we're going to go after trade James Conner and the trade market. The value of Kyler Murray the production of the Arizona Cardinals offense has been very low and very lackluster of what we think they're going to be. And, it's only 3 games into the season. I still think that we're going to see those flashes of them being a great offense. And James Conner is going to be a direct beneficiary of that. All of his value comes in the red zone and hammering it in from the 5-yard line and getting that rushing touchdown upside. His rushing touchdown efficiency has been very good when he gets those opportunities. He just hasn't gotten those opportunities this year based off of the production of the offenses as a whole. But I do think we see that kind of return to where it should be. So I think James Conner is a player you can buy low at the running back position and hang on to him at least until DeAndre Hopkins comes back, and this offense should be operating a lot more smoothly. Marquise Brown, I'm sorry, I didn't give a designation here, but James Conner is going to be a start. Eno Benjamin is worth roster, and you can drop Darrell Williams now. Marquise Brown is going to be an obvious start. He had a great week last week. He had 30 points with no touchdowns. He almost had a touchdown, so that would have put him in the 30-plus point range. So Marquise Brown's an easy start. I think Greg Dortch is actually a start. He's been getting a lot of volume, even though he's not a household name. He's getting 9, 4, and 10 targets a game. So this is going to be an actual usable score in our fantasy lineups moving forward until Week 7 when DeAndre Hopkins comes back. Now, I will say Rondale Moore is scheduled to come back soon. So once Rondale Moore comes back, we're going to see the volume from Greg Dortch transfer over to Rondale Moore. But in the meantime, Greg Dortch is going to be your start. When Rondale Moore comes back, we need to reevaluate. And I think the week that he comes back, we have to bench Greg Dortch. Zach Ertz is going to be a start. Start. Ugh. Carolina Panthers, Baker Mayfield, bench. Christian McCaffrey, start, but we're sad. DJ Moore, get rid of him for anything you can find. I think he is... I don't want him on my team. I mean, you could start him. You're going to have to start him if he's on your team. But, man, if you can get anything for him, send him away. Pair DJ Moore with Austin Eckler and go get Justin Jefferson and James Robinson. If someone's really worried about where they took players in the draft, then this is a trade that will look incredible to them. So you might be able to talk someone into that. So DJ Moore, we're starting if we have to keep him on a roster though. Robbie Anderson, we're benching. Everyone else we're benching. I know Laviska Shenault had a decent game, but that was off of one play. Not something we can count on. But moving on, we have the Patriots versus the Packers, and the Patriots are going to be without Mac Jones. Brian Hoyer is going to be the starting quarterback. So we're obviously benching him. I think this makes the Ramondre Stevenson play a lot more enticing this week because it's going to be a bad quarterback, so they're going to lean on the run. And when they're not leaning on the run, Brian Hoyer might use Ramondre Stevenson as a check down option frequently. So I think Ramondre Stevenson is actually a flex start. Damian Harris is a start. Not an exciting one. If you have Damian Harris still, I would get rid of him while you can as well. I think Ramondre Stevenson takeover is on the horizon. And I don't mean takeover at 100% backfield, but I mean with Ty Montgomery on the injured reserve, I think we start to see Ramondre Stevenson out-snap Damian Harris. So get rid of Damian Harris, but if you have him, you're starting him. Jakobi Meyers, I wouldn't start any pass catchers with Brian Hoyer as a quarterback. I know Jakobi Meyers has had a solid season up until this point. I know Devontae Parker had a big game last week against the Ravens, but you can't start any pass catchers for Brian Hoyer. Maybe you want to take a shot on one in DFS, but in redraft, you can't even consider it. Green Bay Packers. Aaron Rodgers, you can start. You can start going up against the Patriots. The Patriots do have a pretty solid defense, so it's kind of it's like the Saints where they have a solid defense, but you're not really changing up your plans because of it. You're still starting your studs. I know Aaron Rodgers had a slow start to the season, but he's getting back to true form. He's finally getting some rapport with Romeo Doubs. It looks like that's going to be something to look at moving forward, and we'll talk about him a little bit later on. But Aaron Rodgers is going to be a start. Both Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon are hammer starts. I know they had a slow week last week, but they went up against the Bucks, best defense in the league. They had, they split the snap count 50-50 if you're an A.J. Dillon owner. That's something you like to see. So A.J. Dillon and Aaron Jones are both starts moving forward. Allen Lazard is a start as well, although I'm a little bit nervous. I think Romeo Doubs is really the player that you want to be grabbing here. And Romeo Doubs, for me, is going to be a waiver wire target. And if he's not on your waiver wires, I would even put him as a trade target as well. I think you can go and give someone really cheap, give up a very cheap piece that you might even be considering dropping and see if that owner will give up Romeo Doubs for him. I know he had a big week, but, Romeo Doubs isn't a massive, he's not a massive name. He hasn't had like a huge week. I know, he's coming off of this. Well, I guess 21's pretty big. But, it's off of, what is that? 17 targets, 16 targets. And he had a slow, he had an 8-point game and a 4-point game. So you might be able to convince the Romeo Doubs owner to trade him to you for next to nothing. So just give it a shot is what I'm saying, because I think he is going to develop into the wide receiver one of this offense. I don't think Allen Lazard possesses the rapport or talent to do so. But, he's still a startable option. Romeo Doubs is going to be a start for me as well moving forward. And then everyone else is going to be a bench for me. Even Robert Tonyan, I think you can find a better option out there. He did have a better game this week than weeks 1 and 2, though, I will say. So he's on a radar for a potential waiver wire pickup next week if he produces again, but he's not going to be a player you can start quite yet. Broncos versus the Raiders. Oh, man. Two disappointing teams in their own regard. Broncos disappointing because Russell Wilson sucks. And they haven't done anything. And then Raiders are disappointing just because of their record alone, but they had a very hard start to the season. I think that they're going to be recover to a reasonable record in the next coming weeks. But Russell Wilson, bench. If you have him, cut bait. Try to put him in a package to get someone else. We're moving on. We're moving on from Russell Wilson. He might find a groove to this offense later down the line, but we don't want to wait 4 weeks for that to happen. So get rid of Russell Wilson. If you have him, bench him. Find someone else. Javonte Williams, start. It was an infuriating game last week if you're a Javonte Williams owner. Melvin Gordon vultured the touchdown from Javonte. Javonte honestly looked really good when he did have the ball. So, we're going to continue to start for him, and you could put him as a slight trade target. I'll tell you to trade for him, but I'm not going to hit the button for him. Javonte, the talent's there. He's going to keep getting opportunities. If this offense is a little bit more efficient than they are, which is, not efficient at all, they have room to go up. So if that happens, then Javonte Williams is going to get more and more touches, more and more red zone opportunities, and he's going to be more valuable later down the road. So start Javonte Williams. We're benching Melvin Gordon, and you can even sell Melvin Gordon high if you're a team that has him on your bench and you're okay at the running back position. You can try to sell him to a team that is really lacking there. But we're going to sit him this week. Courtland Sutton is going to be a definite start. Jerry Jeudy. Hold on. I think you have to start him. I would, if I had a Zay Jones, I think I would prefer to start Zay Jones over Jerry Jeudy until I see some production. I know he had that bigger week 1, but that was basically off of one play, and he was looking really bad last week. So, I would look for a start over. I would start Elijah Moore over Jerry Jeudy. I would start Zay Jones over Jerry Jeudy. Players like that are who I'm looking at over Jerry Jeudy right now. I'm not dropping Jerry Jeudy, but sit him if you can. KJ Hamler, sit. Albert Oguevanon, sit. Raiders, we're going to start Derek Carr, but don't expect a blow-up game. You're expecting 15 to 20 points here. But you can start Derek Carr. You can start Josh Jacobs. You're obviously starting Devontae Adams. Matt Collins is someone I want to talk about. We see 2 big games out of him the past 2 weeks, but you got to remember that Hunter Renfrow missed most of the game on week 2 and then all of the game on week 3. So I don't think Matt Collins' production and volume is going to stay where it's at. I think he's rosterable because of he's shown us that he can produce in the absence of one of these 2 bigger names. But when Hunter Renfrow comes back, we're not looking for the same production out of Matt Collins. So even though he looks exciting on the waiver wire, I think I probably would be going elsewhere if you can. Hunter Renfrow is a start. Devontae Adams is a start. And then Matt Collins, unfortunately, is going to be a sit for us. Darren Waller, obvious start. Kansas City Chiefs versus the Buccaneers for our Sunday night game. It's a very good game. It's kind of the exciting game of the week for me, other than the Bills versus the Ravens. So look for a hopeful barn burner. And I say hopeful because I don't know what Buck receivers will be playing. I know Mike Evans will be back, so that'll be good to see. Doesn't sound like Julio Jones is going to be back, but we'll get to that when we get to the Buccaneers. For the time being, Patrick Mahomes is going to be a start, obviously. Not much to be said there. CEH is going to be one of our biggest trade targets this week. And when I say trade targets, I mean ship him out. Ship him out. He's given us good production in the fantasy points category for the first 3 weeks, giving us honestly great fantasy production in the first 3 weeks, but it's off of almost no touches, off of almost no volume. We saw Jerick McKinnon out-snap CEH last week. So sell CEH high while you can and go after upgrade at your wide receiver or running back position, or even tight end, I guess, if you want to go and package him in a bigger deal with Pitts or Kelsey or Andrews or something like that. But we're selling CEH if we can, but you're going to start him if you have him on your roster. We're not starting McKinnon or Pacheco. I've said it before. All of these wide receivers, just run. Sell them. Get rid of them. Don't start them. Find a better option. It's spread out, and it's too random from a week-to-week perspective to start any of these guys with confidence. I know Juju had a decent week this week, but I'm not a fan of this offense other than Travis Kelce. We're obviously starting Travis Kelce, but any of these guys, don't start. The Bucs. Brady, if we see Godwin and Mike Evans back, then we can get into the discussion of starting Brady on your fantasy team. Very slow start. This offense is looked horrible in the past few weeks. The O-line is really struggling. The receivers are all out and injured. Tom Brady's dealing with off-the-field issues, or at least speculative off-the-field issues. So, I'll say you can start Tom Brady if Godwin and Evans are back. Leonard Fournette is an obvious start. I think Rachaad White should be picked up from waivers just in case because Leonard Fournette is an older running back. And with that age, when you get a combination of age and very high volume, we see injury. So Rachaad White would be a premier handcuff running back in the event of a Leonard Fournette injury. And we would know that Rachaad White would get pretty much all of the touches out of that backfield, or at least all of the passing work. So Leonard Fournette is a start. Rachaad White is a sit, but you want to grab him off your waiver wires. Mike Evans is going to be a start. If Godwin isn't there, I'm okay with you starting Russell Gage, but I would prefer to go in a different direction. The only reason he had a good week last week is because he was the only receiver healthy for the most part. So I wouldn't expect him to reproduce that fantasy value you saw last week. So I would prefer to sit him, but if your back's against the wall, you can start him, or you could take a shot on him in DFS. Mike Evans, like we said, you're starting, and then Chris Godwin, if he plays, you can start him, but temper expectations, knowing that he's coming off of that hamstring injury. We saw what happened when he tried to come back from the hamstring injury. The first time he re-injured pretty much right away. So I would prefer to bench him, even if he's healthy this week. And give him a week to get back to game speed. And then all tight ends in this Tampa Bay Buccaneers offense is going to be a bench for me. Moving on to our Monday night game, we have the Los Angeles Rams versus the 49ers. Both, again, very disappointing teams. Matt Stafford is still going to be a start, though. Cam Akers, you're starting, finally getting to see a little bit of volume out of him here in this past couple weeks. So we can start Cam Akers. We're benching Darrell Henderson. We knew this drop-off was coming, so hopefully you sold him when we told you to. If you're still holding the bag on Darrell Henderson, you're going to either have to continue holding the bag and hope for Sean McVay to change his mind and turn it back into a 50-50 split. But Darrell Henderson is not really holding some value for us in the next coming weeks. You can start Cam Akers, but we're going to look for a 10 to 15-point game. And then Darrell Henderson, sit. Cooper Kupp is going to be a start, obviously. Allen Robinson has looked absolutely horrible. If you can get anything for him, I'll hit the button on this one. Trade him away. Trade him now. He looks bad. They're trying to scheme stuff up for him. He's dropping touchdown passes. He's dropped multiple touchdown passes this year. The good news is they are looking for him in the red zone, so he does have that spike week potential. But think of him more of like a poor man's Adam Thielen. Really just kind of and a very poor man's Mike Evans. But going to be volatile when he does have those spike weeks. And I really don't want a volatile receiver when you're producing more goose eggs than spike week games, which I think is going to be the case here with Allen Robinson. So get rid of him if you can. I've never been an Allen Robinson fan this year, and I'm looking to be proven right in these, at least for the start of this season in this past 3 weeks. So we're going to try to sit him if we can. Higbee, you have to start based off of the volume. That's volume that you are just dying for at the tight end position, so we're starting Higbee. Garoppolo, bench. Jeff Wilson, easy start. He's going to get all the volume out of the backfield, so you need to have a part of that. If you were a player or a team that was able to pick him up off the waiver wire, you got him for nothing, so you might have 2 other running backs ahead of him. Play Jeff Wilson in your flex. That's the type of score. I think you're getting a 13-point minimum and a 25-point max out of Jeff Wilson. So Jeff Wilson, easy start. Deebo Samuel, easy start. Brandon Ayuk, I would sit him. Sit Brandon Ayuk if you can, but definitely hang on to him. I do like the talent there. And then George Kittle is going to be an obvious start. Man, my voice is sore. I ran out of water, but I had to get you guys the news. On Tuesday this week, we bumped it up again. I'm going to see what our reaction is to releasing the video on Tuesday as compared to last week when we did Wednesday, and then the first week we did Thursday. So we'll see what the feedback is, but look for these start, sit / trade talk videos coming out on Tuesdays going from this point forward. And then we have, again, I'll remind you that we have the live stream leading up to kickoff on Sunday mornings. So if you like the video, please go through and like the video. We're continuing to get better. We're continuing to pump out the content. This is our first year doing so bear with us. I think we've been improving a lot. The support has been incredible. So thank you to everyone that's been out there supporting us. But again, like the channel, subscribe to the channel, and then hit the notification bell so you get notified when we're live or when a video comes out. Week 3 in the books. Looking forward to week 4. Hopefully, fantasy gods are in your favor. I'm hoping that they're in mine. But until Sunday, peace out, and I'll see you then.